Hey, welcome to the Black Knight Nation podcast. I'm Sal Interdonato. I'm here with our guest, Paul Andrzejewski. We're going to talk some Army football. We're going to talk about Paul's time as a Army football player and what he's up to now. Got some interesting stuff going on now with actually some former Army football players. And first off, if you just want to follow us on podcast platforms, we're everywhere on podcasts. You can rate, subscribe, and review us. BlackKnightNation.com is your place to find some Army news. We had some stories this week on the new defensive line coach, Courtney Braswell. Of course, it was signing day on Wednesday. That was a busy day for Army football, as always. And last night, yesterday, some news broke that Mike Sullivan is going to be hired as the next Steelers quarterbacks coach. He's the director of recruiting for Army, former player and former coach at Army, too. So all that news you can find at BlackKnightNation.com. Let's welcome in Paul. Paul, how are you doing tonight?
Great, Sal. It's nice to be here. Thank you for having me on the show. Appreciate it.
Not a problem. Not a problem. Can we call you Juice? Can we formally call you Juice?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Where does that nickname come from?
You remember Coach Heck? You remember Coach Hecker, right?
Yeah.
Wide receiver coach. Well, he's my wide receiver coach, and just like you had trouble pronouncing my last name, he could not pronounce my last name. So he was so frustrated that he just called me Juice, in the first couple practices, and that's how it stuck, So I've always been known by Juice with Army football since my plebe year, Wow. So that's how he couldn't pronounce it. So.
Gotcha. I was looking up, just doing some research on you before the podcast, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your career, obviously, and you look at, maybe compare what wide receivers were like back then to what they are now, if they're the same or not. But first, talk about how you became interested in Army football and how you got to West Point, so to speak.
Well, I came out of Buffalo, New York, and I was a all Western New York wide receiver my junior year. I had to play We weren't very good my senior year, so they made me play quarterback. So I was not heavily recruited at all. So I only had like a couple places, and then Coach John Seymour came along. He was in my area and recruited me to come to Army. So I was going to Cornell. I was going to Cornell's hotel management school, and I went there, and then Coach Seymour came along, and he said, "Hey, come on up." So I went up there, and I really liked the Army. And I wanted to play Division I football. He said, it's a wishbone, I get it, but I wanted to play Division I football in front of a big crowd, and I liked the Army. So, as time, he goes, all right, well, we're going to want you. Well, a couple months went by, I didn't hear anything from him. So I said, this is classic John, Coach Seymour. So I get a phone call from him. He goes, well, hey, why don't you fill out your essay or, and go to the get all stuff. And I go, well, I didn't think you wanted me. I mean, you didn't call. So he goes, no, we want you. Just fill out the essay or do the essay and we'll get you in. I said, okay, hang up the phone. My dad's next to me. He goes, who was that? I go, it was Army football. He goes, what? They didn't get the wide receiver they wanted? Yeah, they didn't, Dad. Thanks, buddy. So, that's the reason why. Then I went up, saw Coach Young was my coach my first year. It was his last year. And I met him, and then I got the appointment, and I came right in. So, and that's another good story because, nowadays, you mentioned something. Nowadays, the recruiting is real tough. My nephew was down here, and it's just different now because my nephew is really a stud, but the Army football program's elevated itself where they're getting higher level recruits, right?
Yeah.
There was 19 wide receivers for one spot as a plebe. Are you kidding me? You look at me like, I'm 155. I'm looking around because I could catch, so I couldn't block with a thing. And, so I worked my way up after, that's at my senior year, there was 2 wide receivers left out of that 19 group. It was me and another guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
that's a long-winded answer for your answer, but that's how I got the Army.
No, but it really shows like even nowadays, there's some attrition, obviously, when they bring in 90 player recruiting classes, right? And you look at maybe their senior classes go anywhere between 20 and 30 kids, probably, that stick around for 4 years, or that quote make the team and stick around because they do kind of have tryouts. I don't know if they had them back then when you played too.
No, not they didn't. They would basically they would I don't know what the right term is, run you out. They put you on scout team and beat the crap out of you for a whole year, and people just quit. So I mean that's kind of the attrition. We had 30. I think we had 28 seniors, and that was the most because the year before was Gaylord Green and McElrath was a free safety at the time, and they had like 13 only. So they never cut anybody. They just, you either got hurt or they wore you out where you're just like, I'm done with this. I'm not going to play. And the demands of the academy, I just need to graduate. So, I guess they cut now. I'm not sure, but, I know John Luce after I graduated, I was graduate. Yeah. And on the defensive side, actually, because no one wanted to do that. And I was Coach Luce's, GA.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did you climb up the depth chart, so to speak? Because you said there were a bunch of guys when you entered. How were you able to climb up the depth chart and get some playing time?
I could catch and I could run routes, and Coach Hecker really liked that. And then as I got bigger, I was always like it was odd because I was always like in my class, one or two of the top receivers all the way through. And then I was always number one out of my class. But I could catch and run routes real well. And then I just grew into the blocking. And I don't know if you remember back, it was 91 when we lost to Navy, 20-3. And we didn't throw the ball at all. Willie McMillan got hurt. Myron Williams was the quarterback. Because he moved from wide receiver over. Monty Tomasino was the receiver, and I was backing him up as a sophomore. They decided after that year to throw the ball a little bit more. I don't know if you remember that 92 year, so they needed a receiver I could catch, and it was all timing, and I was the guy. And I could block. I was an adequate blocker, but in the type of offense that they were doing and the throwing, that was the guy.
Yeah, I saw somewhere you led the team in catches your junior year, and then your senior year you had about 20 catches. Is that accurate?
Yeah. I think I had 40. I still have the record for catches in a year in the Wishbone era. 7. And one touchdown. But I think I had like 47 or 48 catches in my 2 years, and I started every game. So I mean, I had some good quarterbacks too. Rick Roper was my quarterback until he got hurt. Mike McCovic was our starter my junior year, and then he got hurt in North Carolina, and then Rick Roper came in. He was a starting quarterback for the rest of the time that I was there, and he was really good. So I got lucky because they were good throwing quarterbacks. They could throw, So
yeah. Now you look at today's Army offense, right? I mean, maybe you get 5 passes a game. Maybe that's probably a high. If you get to double digits in pass attempts, it doesn't. And I was talking the other day about this. A lot of the passes are kind of distributed. They'll throw to the slot backs. They'll throw to the tight end. The wide receivers are basically, and that when you sign up that you're there to block, basically, right? Did you know that back then too, or no?
Yeah, I did. And that was pleasant. It was awesome. You know what? And to be quite honest with you, I just wanted to get on the field and play in front of all those people and be part of the Army football team. I knew that I wasn't going to get the passes, and it was just great that they started to throw my junior, when I started. I mean, 27 passes is a lot in that offense. And, we in blocking was okay. I mean, it wasn't great, but, so I think overall it worked out well for me on both ends because I got to play in front of all those people, be with my teammates and get passes,
Yeah. Is there a favorite memory for you on the field? A game that you always tell stories about, or?
There's a couple, but this is crazy. And it's too bad this guy is in jail now, but I was at Temple and I catch the ball on the sideline at Temple. We're playing, in Veterans Stadium. I catch the ball on their sideline. I turn it up and I get knocked out of bounds. All of a sudden, someone slaps me on my rear end and he goes, "Great catch." I turn around. It's Bill Cosby. Because he was he was a big Temple supporter. He gave all their uniforms, and then he starts yelling at their defensive back for not covering me. And now it's like, oh crap, you don't want to tell the story because everything that he did. But at that time, I was like, wow, it's Bill Cosby. I can't believe he just did that.
Yeah, I mean, back then, who knows? Is the Cosby Show still in existence back then or no?
I don't. Well, that was at the heyday, right? I don't even know if
Yeah.
but that was it was the Bill Cosby show.
You know,
That was that's just I tell that a lot to to people that and the other one was really the North Carolina game. We lost, but we were in it. It was like 14-9, and going in the fourth quarter. And Mac Brown was the coach back then, and Thomas Smith was a DB, an NFL DB, and they had Natron Means was their running back, and there was like 50,000 people. It was a big rainstorm, and we had them. We were just it was just a great experience to be down there, and we lost, but to be talking about that now with all Mac Brown and those guys that you played against, it was pretty fun.
Yeah.
The Army Navy games, we were with the one where what's his name, Malcolm kicks 2 kicks in a row, and we win 25-24 after we were down by a lot, and then the next year the Navy kicker misses the 20-yard field goal. And that dude gets into Sports Illustrated. I'm like, are you kidding me? He's a bum. He kicked the ball right, and he couldn't even make it. Jeez. Yeah, he was in Sports Illustrated, if you can believe that crap.
What was it like playing in Army Navy games back then? Because it was that era where the games came down to the final play often, right? I mean, what was it like to play? I mean, yeah, it's the greatest rivalry in college football, but when it's coming down, where it's going to come down to like the final snap or the final play, what can you describe what that was like?
Yeah, it's like I don't know how the feeling. I think it's like, how do you describe it? Like you're floating on air, like you can do anything that you want to do. You're running, and you just feel like you're almost invincible. And to start off that game, they started with the Corps of Cadets that made this cordon that was all the way the whole field, and that was the first time they ever did that. So we're coming out of my junior year, and they were just running all the way down. I couldn't believe it. So that was pretty cool. And you're just on cloud 9, and they're thinking that, hey, I got to do my job. I have to make sure I'm not doing something wrong, because you're in front of, and this stuff lasts lifetimes. You talk about, we go to this golf tournament every year, right? Yeah. And you're talking about, just like me and you talking about stuff every year. It's like, okay, those plays, and we still laughing about it, and and how Malcolm's a hero, and I mean, it's and I'm we'll get to this, but I'm working with Joe Ross, who's the running back. He owns his own company. I'm working with Rick Roper. We're talking about it all the time. Even at work, we're talking about, hey, you gotta get into the end zone. Come on, Rick. I was wide, that's the other thing. I was wide open one time and he fumbled. It was just, it's some good memories. But yeah, we talk. But my point is that you talk about it for a lifetime, and and you're in the game, and you're like, man, it's like I'm floating sometimes. Like you can do anything you want to do.
What's it like now as an ex-player to see the success that Army's had in the Commander-in-Chief games? They've won the Commander-in-Chief's trophies 3 of the last 4 years. What's the pride factor like for that?
It's unbelievable. I mean, we're down here in Huntsville, Alabama, where we have a big contingent of West Pointers, big Army. So it's unbelievable, the pride that you have. And, we go through thick, obviously those 12 years or 14 years were awful. And I have kids now, and we're having, we have a big get together, and I couldn't be prouder of what the team is doing. This is an unprecedented, it's almost like Alabama with Saban, right? He's got this dynasty that's, 6 or whatever they got, national championships. And then we got Army over here, 3 out of, just, performing at a high level and winning the CIC. It's amazing. It really is. And what Coach Monken's doing, the coaching staff and the players, and you can see, that the pride and the confidence that team has. We went to the bowl game, and even though we were down, you're like, hey, we're still, we feel like you're going to win. Every game you're going out there now, you feel like you can win. So it's a great time to be an Army, an ex-Army football player and a fan right now, and we just got to keep Coach Monken.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that bowl game, right? They were missing a bunch of key players, and there was no excuses. They just went out there and played their tails off, and nearly pulled that game out. So,
right.
What was it
right.
like?
And they're mad.
Yeah.
You know what, Sal? They're mad that they lost. Like they're not happy that they, even with all that stuff that happened, they were upset that they lost. They should have won. Just like we went to the Michigan game, watched that. They should have won that game, and they're not. That's not to play now. That to play them tough, a good team is not good enough. It's to win. That's the attitude that they have, and I like it. It's awesome.
Yeah, I remember when I first started covering the team, like say mid 2000s, 2007. I mean, yeah, you just want to be competitive in those games, right? You just want
Right.
to put up a fight. And now they're like so close to breaking through in all these next year. I mean, this year coming up with Wisconsin at Wisconsin, is another opportunity for them, and to see if they can break through. And I think that's what's missing with the Monken resume right now, right? That
Yeah.
win against a Power Five team. So,
Right.
I was going to ask you just about. I mean, you talked a little bit about your teammate, a couple of your teammates. Is there any teammates that you're still really fond of? Outside of who you bump into every day, or is there any? Talk about the relationship of the Brotherhood of the Army and how it's still today. And
I got to tell you something that it's crazy because all my teammates are great, and I got a lot of good friends. But this golf tournament, I've gotten to know 1986 and 1987 guys, Ron Rice and Joe Manassa and James Brock and Rob Healy and Rick Dowk and all these guys from different eras. So I can sit down, and I have to become best friends with these guys. I go to the golf tournament. I play with those guys in the golf, in the golf tournament that we have every year. And it's just like I can sit down with a 1950s guy, a 1950s football player, and sit down just like I'm talking to my teammate in 1994 or a 2015 guy. That's what the brotherhood is about. It's like we sit down, and it's great. This is another great story. So we're staying in 2 years ago, we went to because we didn't go last year because of the COVID. Yeah. So we're in this dive hotel right outside of West Point. It's not the West Point Hotel. It's right down the road before you get on, I forget, 9W or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, right? So it's out, we just put our chairs out there and, we're having a good time. And Steele, he comes. Yeah, he comes because his classmates are there, and we are making fun of him because he's late, and he's just talking to us. I don't even know the guy. I know of him. So he sits, and we're talking for like 30 minutes before they got to go. And it's just like talking to me and you or my best friends. That is unbelievable to me that he just would sit down there and just talk to you. And actually, they're picking on each other, I mean, it's just crazy. And it's like no other, so, I mean, it's you got to get through the school. That's a tough part about the whole thing. But the brotherhood, it's crazy how good it is. And I work with Joe and Rick, but it's Ron Rice. I talk to them all the time. Rob Healy and Rick Dowk, and I just keep naming them. Coach Seaman is something. I mean, it's an unbelievable. I guess accomplishment. I don't do my own, but for every football player to get through that, you're set with great people for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I mean, that's one day on the calendar for the year I always look forward to. I popped into those socials on Friday night, and when you can talk to, I talked to Bob Novogratz from back in the 50s, an All-American lineman. They used. I've talked, and you're right. It spans the decades of Army football. I mean, I could talk to Ken Johnson, who played in the '60s, who was an All-American, and then Lehman Hall. I've talked to. I mean, you can go down the line. And Gary Steele, talking about Gary Steele, who was really kind of broke the color barrier for Army football, right? I mean, he was one of the first African American football players at Army. And his daughter Sage Steele is the ESPN host, and I mean that's still important. That is especially when we're talking about Black History Month this month. That is an important story in Army football history that I think sometimes gets maybe put in the past a little bit, but that's important now. Especially during what we're going through right now. So.
No, you're exactly right. I mean, it's very important. He's awesome. So
yeah, really great guy. And I've never really bumped into anybody at that social that was not all I would go there to talk to. I would talk to hear stories. You like to hear stories. You like to hear what it was like back then. What do they think about the program now? And the connections there are incredible. Talk to us a little bit about what you're up to now with Joe Ross and Rick Roper and what you guys are doing. Higher echelon's your company, right? My fault.
Higher echelon is our company, and we were in defense contracting, and we do organizational performance or consulting firm on the commercial side too. So Joe, after he got out of the Army, he was a coach up there at West Point, and made his own company, came down to Huntsville, and I'll make this story short, but we're about 140 employees. We work, out of Huntsville here, but we do engineering services and Army Game Studio stuff, and cyber and human capital and leadership. So we have a wide breadth of stuff that we do, but I'm a senior vice president. I'm over the cyber, gaming, and simulation and engineering divisions for the company. And Rick does the human capital, and then Joe obviously is, owns the company. So, we do a lot of great work with the government and the Army with serving the soldiers, and then we also do a lot of consulting work with regular companies for leadership. We'll do work. We did work with Merck and some, big companies and Pfizer and couple companies like that will go in there and evaluate their leadership and see what the problems are, and then we'll give them tools to make them better leaders. So it's an awesome company. We're growing at a rapid rate and having a lot of fun doing it. with the guys I'm working with. So it's pretty awesome.
What does your department detail with the gaming? Because talking to Joe, you mentioned is there some kind of an app that was involved? Did you develop an app for the Army football program, or?
Yeah, well, it's called Go Army Edge, and it's the Army owns it. It's a free app that you put all your plays in for high school, the team. So it was an example of it was at LSU. They did it on ESPN. LSU's the team is using it. They use a full screen, so the players are up there, and it's virtual players, and you can do drills on it. You can make it 3D, 2D. You write all your plays in there. It's interactive with. There's some other apps that you can use to get into, like Huddle puts some other places that you can put the film in to show the kids. And we coached high school football, and we used it this year at the local high school down here with our kids that play. But I think there may be like 15,000 high school coaches that are using it, plus colleges are using it, and then Indianapolis Colts were using it also. But it's a free app. So what we do there is we have developers, and they can write code. They do debugging. They consult with with the schools to make sure that the app is running right and they can use it.
Wow. So it goes from high school to college to the NFL. That's pretty impressive. Yeah. That's pretty impressive. What was the thinking behind that? Why create that?
Well, when Joe was at Army, they were trying to figure out how to make the quarterback reads better. So they developed a 180-degree screen with 21 virtual players, a real quarterback with a real football with a chip in it. And then they would speed up the simulation for his reads. And they've seen so much success with it that the government said, hey, we need to get this down and expand on this. And they saw marketing. It was a marketing tool to get into high schools that weren't allowing the Army to go recruit. So one of the caveats is that you have to have a local recruiter give you access to the app. That's free, but you just got to get access so the local Army recruiter knows what's going on down there. But it's a big marketing tool for the Army, and that's how it started. So Joe was still in the Army, and then he got out. Then he came down and was the first employee of higher echelon and the lead consultant for Army Game Studio.
Wow. What's it like to be working still? You played what? 25, almost 30 years, right? Let's not put any date on it, but to be working with your quarterback, you work with Rick Roper, your quarterback. You work with, I know that Joe was also a teammate of yours, right? So, what's it like to, like you say, you talk Army football almost every day, but what's it like on the business side to work with, guys that you kind of went to college with and became probably some of your better friends too? So
the biggest thing that I was in the corporate world for about 17 years. I was in big companies. I was in private equity, and then I ran the gamut I was in manufacturing. The biggest thing that out of the business side of it is that you can trust them. You know that they're not going to stab you in the back, and you know that your opinion is not going to be politically taken, so that you can make your opinion, you can disagree, and they're not going to be like, well, this guy, I'm going to fire him. I've seen that over and over in the business world. You don't have to watch it. It's like, no, they got your back. You're going to, there's an interaction here that you really don't see too often. in business, so that's what's great about it in the business aspect of it, because we can, speak our opinion, and we have very strong opinions at times. So it gets, I don't know, you say comical at times. Someone an outsider is like, I cannot believe these guys are talking like this, but, that's trust is a really big thing. And, my kids are the same age, and I don't know if Joe told you this, but my kids are the same age as Joe's kids for our boys. So they're on the same football team, they're on the same basketball team, and they're on the same baseball team, so, and our wives get along real well. So it's a great situation. I don't know how to explain it. It's awesome. So.
Yeah, I don't think when you're in the huddle at West Point, you're thinking like, hey, let's down the road, let's get all together, let's get the band back together, so to speak, and let's do something like something like this, right?
Yeah, and I got a good story about that. You talk about stories. We're in a huddle. I mean, Rick is getting killed, right? And I took the play number. They would signal in the play number, and he would get formation. I go, play number. He goes, like they don't know that play's not coming. And he goes, all right, guys. He turns around like, all right, guys, but right 68. Here we go. Like, oh God. He goes, I'm getting my butt kicked. I don't need to play. Getting my butt kicked,
Obviously, it was a quarterback run.
Yeah, absolutely. He was like, I'm getting killed,
Well,
I don't know that play's coming. Oh, jeez.
Now you got to play, like you said, your first year you got to play with Jim under Jim Young, and then you had Bob Sutton come in. What was it like to play with under Coach Sutton?
The first year he was feeling his way around. You could tell, right? Because he was on the defensive side. He was always defense. He came to the offensive side. But, what about Coach Sutton was that he was smart and he figured it out, right? So we went, that next year after we went 3-8 or whatever and lost the Navy and got killed there, he made a lot of adjustments, and he was able to adapt and learn from, this first year, right? So he was really, good at that and really smart and took it to the, he went to the 96. So what I mean is that he was learning and did it. Coach Young was already there, right? When I got there, the coaches were afraid of him. Everyone was like, boom, 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 because he's a Hall of Fame coach. He was already, everyone knew what he was doing. He was winning in the 80s. So, that was the difference that I saw between the two of them. When I saw Coach Young probably 6 years ago at the golf tournament. Yeah. And I would play for him 1 year. And we were at a sponsor. Actually, it's me, Joe. We were sponsoring it a couple days before the, that Friday banquet. And he goes, yeah, I remember you. He goes, you should have went to BYU. Because BYU threw the ball all over the place, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so he had mine like a trap, or whatever. So that's another funny story that, but Sutton was awesome. And, we don't keep it. Joe Ross and Rick keep in touch with him because Rick was out in Kansas City for a while. But I don't keep in touch with him too much anymore. So
it's really neat Army football in the NFL, right? There's a bunch. We have 4 players now in the NFL, and now it seems like there's a couple of guys from this year's team that might have a chance to join them, and it's really cool to follow the journey of the program, no doubt, right?
Right. And that's what's great too, is that you got a chance to go, to go pro too. So, you got the coaches in the NFL, and then you got these players that it's just a great recruiting tool for the Army, in my opinion, and it's great to watch these guys play. Right. So.
Yeah. Because in the past, the rules have changed so much, right? And you look at, pretty soon we're going to have an interview with Colin Mooney, right? And Colin Mooney and the Josh McNairys and the Ali Villanuevas of the world, they had to wait. They had to serve at least 2 years, and then had to see if they were able to get released from their Army commitment to go chase their NFL dreams. Now you can go straight to the NFL, and still have to serve your time on after your NFL opportunity is over with. And I think that's gonna. You're right with recruiting. That no doubt. And you see them getting some players that are getting some Power 5 offers, and like you look at like a Kawina Bonsu. That kid had multiple Power 5 offers, a defensive lineman that's going to be a senior next year, and he chose to come to Army. and he is a legit Division I defensive lineman. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
Nolan Cockrell too. They've really developed some guys down there. So I guess Army's recruited Alabama a little bit more heavier in the last couple of years too, right? Where you guys are. So
Yeah, there's a quarterback that's supposed to be really good coming in. He can throw and he can run. He's from a local. I don't know if it's from Athens or Decatur.
Nick Sawyer, I think, is his name.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
from
Sparkman. Where's Sparkman?
Sparkman. Yeah. So Joe lives right next to Sparkman.
Okay.
Yeah. Joe lives right there. I think it's 70s. It's the top school, and he's a legit player. I mean, he can throw and he can run. So
nice. I mean, that's what they're. You're looking at how important that quarterback position is for them now, and maybe the throwing part, right, Paul? Maybe you get the receivers a little bit more action down the road. So you never know.
Yeah, and we were talking about it the other day. I was like, the formula is working, even though I get frustrated watching them because you can say, like, hey, pitch it, or you can throw. You can sprinkle in 7 or 8 passes because as long as I don't know the whole circumstances behind why they don't, but
sure.
It works. So, I mean, I'm not going to complain. I just it'd be nice to see a couple more throws in there. Maybe if a kid comes in there and has a good arm and good accuracy and he can run and throw, that you get the total package is, down the road. I think he will, because he did see that I think he's thrown, a little bit. Not this year, but maybe I'm got delusions of grandeur. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Christian Anderson coming into Army had the second highest passing yardage in the season in New York State history. So he Greg Paulus, he was behind. So I mean, he threw the ball a lot in high school. So we'll see what happens. I know that they like the flex bone, and they like obviously we know they like the fullback, but Isaiah Alston was a freshman wide receiver this year that got off to a pretty good start, and I think he got a little banged up. I want to say Cincinnati game maybe. And maybe he's a guy that looked like he had a lot of potential. So maybe if they get a spring, who knows? If they get a spring, I mean, it must have been pretty cool to see them live, right? To go to the bowl game and see them live during the pandemic, considering there were no fans at Michie Stadium for 8 home games this year. That must have been pretty neat to see a live Army football game this year.
Yeah, it was awesome, and we got lucky because they moved the game, right? So it was only 3 hours away, and Joe got a box, so we were all right. We were out of the elements, and it was a blast. It was so much fun. Yeah, and to see them play was great, So, yeah.
Yeah, hopefully they get to have some fans at Michie Stadium this fall with the schedule coming up. I was looking over the schedule before we came on, and you had the Wisconsin game coming up, but you also have Ball State, which had a really good season in 2020, and you have Liberty, which had a really good season in 2020 on the schedule. And so, I mean, right, and then you got the Navy and Air Force games too. So that's 5 tough games out of, say, 12 out of their schedule. I mean, they want to take the next step, and this is a team that's gonna, right? I mean, they returned a lot of this 2020 team that had 9 wins. So how excited are you about the future of this team?
Yeah, really excited. That it's the foundation's there, and they're just we could be really good next year. If the injuries and some of the stuff don't happen to us, the potential there is to be really, really good. And the opportunity to, if you beat Wisconsin and those teams you just mentioned, you got a chance to be around top 15, top 12 team, and you're looking at a really good bowl game. So
yeah. I mean, the Liberty Bowl was fine this year. Liberty Bowl was different, and you got a Power 5 opponent. It worked out. Army was at first not in the bowl picture, but that all worked out for them. And I thought it was it was good for them to go to a different site, a different place. The Armed Forces Bowl, been there, done that. Great, right. Yeah, but good to see them play at a different site against a different conference team, and against a team that had. I mean, that defense for West Virginia was legit with like 2 or 3 guys that are going to play in the NFL. So, I mean, it was pretty impressive what Army did at certain times during that game. So I really appreciate the time. I know you got to run. You got another you got a basketball game to go to now?
Yeah, Joe and our sons are playing in a little bit here. I'm right. That's where I'm at the school. And then I was at the baseball. I'm coaching baseball too. So, yeah, I'm going to have to go run over there for the game.
Keeps you busy, man. Keeps you busy.
Yeah.
Paul, thanks so much for the time. Really appreciate your stories and your passion for Army football, and what you're doing now too. Actually, is also helping out the team too. So thanks a lot for your time, and look forward to talking to you down the road.
Hey, I really appreciate it, Sal. You're welcome, and I really appreciate what you do for Army football. And thank you very much, and beat Navy.
Thank you for listening to the Black Knight Nation podcast with your host, Sal Interdonato. For more information on your Army Black Knights, visit BlackKnightNation.com. And be sure to subscribe, follow, rate, and review on your favorite podcast app.